Hello and welcome back to the Birdcage. I'm recording this Saturday, March 22nd. The Creighton Bluejays season is over. The Blue Jays just fell 82 to 70 to the committee's number one overall seed, the Auburn Tigers, in even though it was a 12-point game, a nail biter. Came down to the wire pretty much, and free throws kind of put this one away. And I'm gonna do a big video later either in the week. I'm going to keep up with a little bit of off-season portal stuff, but this video is pretty much just going to be the game recap. I'm going to do a whole big video on all of the seniors, Jemiah, Culk, um, Steven, Sammy. All those guys have been such an important part to the program, so I'm going to give them their own kind of video talking about it. This is going to be more of a game recap, similar to typically what I post on this channel. But it was a great game. It was a phenomenal game. What I will say is Auburn did not sleepwalk in this game at all. After they kind of clinched up the SEC, there was a little bit of sleepwalking. You could make an argument. You can make an argument that it wasn't necessarily effort based why they weren't playing nearly as good, but it was just because they kind of wrapped up the SEC, so they're resting up for the tournament. Sure, and that's fine. But they weren't necessarily the hottest team coming into the NCAA tournament. We saw in the first half Alabama State. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Alabama State gave them a pretty good run for their money in the first half of that game, and then in the first round, and then Auburn kind of figured it out in the second one by a good amount. So I was hoping that Creighton could come out, put their foot on the gas, and get out to a very comfortable lead. Now, Creighton shot nearly as good as you could expect a team to shoot. They shot well over 50% from three in the first half. They made nine of them. I think 9 of 14 was the correct number. I can't pull up the exact stats of the first half. They're not available to me right now. They're available to media members only who have credentials, which is kind of unfortunate because this is my second take. I tried to do a take where I went and tried to find them, but I was too focused on finding the actual stats than talking to the camera. So this is take two of this thing. Now I'm already about to where I was. But Creighton shot terrific from three. They shot well over 50%. Jackson McAndrew hit four of them. I think Steven had two or three three-pointers of his own in that first half. And it was incredible. Kalkbrenner started the game with a banked three-pointer. Fedor hit a three. It took a while for Neil to get going. We'll talk about more of him later in the game. But it was just incredible. It was an incredible game. It was an incredible season. The guys really played just great. They really did. And you can't ask them to do any more. Auburn was a tough task. SEC champions, people are calling them the best basketball conference in the country. I think in the regular season they were. They haven't looked nearly as good in the NCAA tournament up until now. I mean, it is still technically the first weekend. So there's a lot more to play for. For the SEC, all of those top teams did actually advance. But it was a phenomenal game. And at the end of the day, that's what you want is you want good basketball games, and that's what this was. Sad that Creighton had to come out on the losing end of it, but you can't hang your head. This is an Auburn team that has Final Four aspirations, national championship aspirations, and they got the better of Creighton today. Creighton went into the half up two. They were drilling 3-point shots. They were doing enough inside the paint. I think Creighton's first, I want to say they hit six threes to start the game. Like that's how they got their first 18 points was just on six three-pointers, which I think is true if my memory is correct. I think there was a few Jackson threes in there, a Kalkbrenner, and then a Stephen Ashworth, one or two there. But it was an incredible start to the game. Auburn's big. They're huge. To start the game, Kalkbrenner was actually not guarding Janiah Broom, surprisingly. He was guarding Cardwell, and he was terrific. He was super, super good for Auburn. He did everything that they asked him to do. He was terrific. Janiah Broome was held to 8 points. Kalkbrenner and Jason Green held him to 8 points. And a lot of media people are going to say a lot of that was Kalkbrenner. I think a lot of that could have been Kalkbrenner, but I also want to give a shout out to Jason Green. He ended up fouling out in the game, but his defense on Janiah Broome was terrific. That is probably the National Player of the Year right there. And you went head to toe right with them for a majority of the game. So Jason Green, it was terrific. Tip your hat to him. But it was tough. It was a really, really tough game. I want to talk about a few things in particular with Auburn. And we'll mainly start in the second half because in the first half they didn't play their best. Creighton played some pretty good defense, but Auburn could have scored pretty much every possession. Creighton just made 9 3-pointers, made life a little difficult for them. But I kind of want to talk about Auburn to start the second half because Creighton was up two, but you always just kind of knew that Auburn was going to go on a big run, and they did. They went on, I think, a 20-4 run. Now, I don't know. I would know exactly what it was if I could see the actual stats that I usually have up, but I'm not able to. So I'm pretty confident it was a 20-4 run in a span where Chad Baker Mazzara went berserk. He went he went in fuego. He couldn't miss. He had a three-pointer, a drive to the basket, and then I think two and ones where he capitalized on one of the two. And he was incredible. Everything Auburn needed him to be in that second half, he was. I think he had 12 of Auburn's 18 points at one point in the second half. I like he was amazing for Auburn. And then it was it was Todd Pettiford, the freshman, 32 minutes off the bench. He was incredible as well. He really, really was. He did a lot of good things for Auburn. He was able to get loose in the second half, make life really difficult for Steven Ashworth, Jemiah Neal, Fedor Zugic, whoever was pretty much on Todd Pettiford. He made it very clear that he's one of the best freshmen in the country. He's a 5 star for a reason. Denver Jones was terrific. He was all SEC Defensive Player of the Year or all SEC All Defensive Team member, and he played like it today. He was terrific. He had a steal, but most importantly, he had 15 points. He went 2 for 2 from the behind the arc. He made his free throws. He did everything you needed him to do. And then the team, Auburn is just so balanced. They can attack you inside with Broome and Cardwell and Johnson. They can attack you from behind the arc. If you're leaving them open, you can't leave Kelly open. You can't leave Jones or Chad Baker Mazzara. You can't leave him open. And Broome has shown that he can hit a three. He went 0 4 today, but he's shown in the past that he can hit it if he's wide, wide open. It was one of those games where Auburn is just so effective on everywhere. And that's just the truth. They can get you inside, they can get you outside, they can turn you over, they can make you play fast, and it's impressive and it's how they win games. And they're coached by Bruce Pearl, who's a phenomenal coach. They made life really, really difficult for Creighton. Stephen Ashworth had 4 turnovers. Kalkbrenner had 2 of them. Neal had a turnover. Jason Green had a bad turnover on an inbounds play. It was going up against Auburn's no tough task, and Creighton didn't really help themselves in that area. They had 11 turnovers. They averaged like 13 a game, so they kept it below the average, but it was still enough. It was still enough to make Auburn, to give Auburn enough confidence to push the tempo and get easy buckets at the other end. Overall, the Creighton side of things, Jackson McAndrew was incredible. He had 4 3-pointers. All of them were in the first half. I wish he could have had a few more in the second, but that's just not the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Jemiah Neal, 13 points on 5 of 13 shooting. He was cold to start the game. Then he two three-pointers back to back, and I think he had a transition layup or something. And he had a cool dunk to kind of cut the lead. So the Auburn lead up a little bit. So he had a pretty good game. Not his best game, obviously, when you go from scoring 29 points in a game against Louisville. I didn't do a video for that game because I was going to kind of do a round one or a first weekend recap. I don't know why I'm yawning. It is only 9 o'clock. But Jemiah Neal, pretty much everything you could have asked for a 1 year transfer. He was terrific, especially after Pop Isaacs went down. He was phenomenal, and he's a big reason why we're here. So, well, I'll do a whole video talking about it later, but he had a great game. Stephen Ashworth, 5 of 11 shooting, 3 of 7 from deep. He wasn't able to get looks off in the second half, and that's because Auburn made it a focus to make sure him and McAndrew are taking tough shots when they're in the game. And that's just kind of what happens sometimes. He finished the night with 13 points, so below his season average. I know it's not going to be the best way he could have went out, but there was a stretch there where he was in fuego. I think he was 3 of 3, 3 of 4 from behind the arc to start the game. So he was feeling it. Ryan Kalkbrenner, the second best Creighton Blue Jay of all time, definitely top three. I'm not going to say arguably number one. I think Doug McDermott's got that locked up, but he's up there. He had a terrific game. He finished the night with 18 points, 7 of 13 from the field, and a lot of people are saying he was responsible for holding Janiyah Broome to 8 points, but I know that was a team effort, a group effort with him and Jason Green and even Fred King. Fred played 2 minutes, so it was a really, really good game. It was unfortunate the way it had to end because you would just love to see Creighton come out with some dominance in that second half, maybe push their lead up. That's just not the way the cookie crumbled. And a lot of that has to do with Tahad Pettiford. He would use those ball screens and he'd get into the lane and he'd take those floaters and he would make them. It was a high percentage shot for him. They were going in. They looked great coming off his hand and they were hitting the bottom of the net. Same thing with Chad Baker Mazzara. He takes some like really questionable shots at times, but when he nails them, you're like, yeah, that's a great shot. It's a momentum swinging shot. It's a momentum pushing shot, and he has the ability to make those. And he made a few against Creighton today. And then he's fast twitched. He had the ability to get into the lane and make a play and draw contact and play through contact and play through fouls. And it was really impressive what he was able to do. And those guys kind of picked Creighton apart in the second half a little bit. And that's just good basketball players. That's good basketball players. That's smart basketball players. And do I think Auburn has the chance to win it all? Absolutely. They're well coached. They have a great roster. They have guys who can score on the bench, off the bench. They have guys who can play make. They do everything. So yes, I think Auburn can go far in the tournament. As for Creighton, it was a great game. They had opportunities to take advantage. They had opportunities to extend their lead. They had a ton of opportunities. I mean, with 2 minutes left to go, it was a 6 point game. A minute and a half to go, a 6 point game. Jemiah Neal kind of jumps on a pump fake. They get an and one. Denver Jones gets an and one. So you're sitting there and you're like, there is an opportunity there. And just like that, the door kind of closed. But at the end of the day, it was a terrific season for Creighton. Obviously, not a lot of people had Creighton making it past Louisville in the first round. And that just showed how great this Creighton program is. They've made 5 straight round of 32s at least. So that's just the kind of program Creighton is. They're nationally known as being a great basketball school now. I mean, they were before, but they're respected. They have the numbers to kind of back that up. You were just kind of hoping maybe that Auburn would kind of come out and sleepwalk a little bit, mess up a little bit in that second half, not shoot nearly as good as Chad Baker Mazar, as Denver Jones, as Dahad Pettiford did. Because, man, this game, the score won't make it look like that, but this game was winnable for Creighton. And they had their opportunities. At the end of the day, you can't hang your head. You lost to a good basketball team. But it's kind of sad to see the season kind of wrap up and end. I'm going to kind of give a few of my quick thoughts about the season. I think I've now mentioned like 3 times I'm going to do a senior video. I'll be keeping up with the transfer portal, a lot of just Creighton news, but then portal news in general. I might try to do a portal video once a week, do something different. But it was a very fun season. You got to be proud of the Creighton team that you saw today because when Pop Isaacs went down on the 7th, on December 7th, I want to say, that wasn't it wasn't very optimistic. A lot of Creighton fans weren't thinking that this season was going to account to very much, especially since they had their early season struggles in Las Vegas and that early season loss to Nebraska. You're kind of hanging your head. Can this team finish top half of the Big East? Yes, they can. And they can because Greg McDermott's a phenomenal coach. They can because of the culture that Ryan Kalkbrenner and Stephen Ashworth have installed in these guys. And they can because these guys are going to step up and make plays. Jason Green against UConn, he had 19 points. Fedor, he had 10 points tonight, but he also had 13 points against DePaul. Ty Davis stepped up when Stephen Ashworth fouled out against DePaul. Like, it's just incredible, really, is what it is. And Auburn was going to be a tough task. McDermott said before the game that they can't foul. They can't foul Auburn. They can't make this a hack fest. It's not how you're going to win. And Creighton fouled more than Auburn did. I want to say Creighton had 17 fouls, 17 team fouls. Yeah. And Auburn had 14. It's a Creighton team who doesn't foul a whole bunch. And I feel like there were actually kind of like quite a few ticky tack fouls. But at the end of the day, it's still a foul. The game's over. There's a lot to learn from this Creighton team this year. They battled every game. They didn't hang their heads. They didn't give up. They competed. And I knew that this season was going to be different when I saw them compete on the road against Marquette because they didn't win that game, but it was the first time I saw a team that really gutted one out in a tough environment and just came up short. They really did. They had all of the potential to win that game. They made all of the right plays. It was just a few plays that didn't go their way. But that's the game where I knew that this team could do something special, and they did. They won the round of 64 game against Louisville. They competed with the best team in the country, according to the committee, for 30 minutes, 30 plus minutes. Like it was a 2 possession game with a minute and a half left to go. And it just didn't kind of go their way, but that's sometimes just how the game goes. It was a fun game. It was an energetic game. Everyone was excited. There were CU chants in the building. I didn't know if there was going to be CU chants in the building all night because this is an Auburn team that can just really just pretty much blow it open from the start of the game. And Creighton was the better team for more than a half of basketball. And Bruce Pearl kept on saying, we can't let this team beat us from behind the arc because they can. They can beat us from behind the arc, but they can't beat us in the interior. And I feel like Creighton didn't try to beat them in the interior. They tried to play their game. And at the end of the day, what Auburn just had to offer was a little more than what Creighton had to offer. And sometimes that happens. It's a very sad, it's always kind of sad when the season kind of wraps up. But those were just the initial thoughts. I'm going to do a whole different video on the seniors, on Kalkbrenner, on Ashworth, Neal. I'm going to do a big transfer video. We'll keep up with the Blue Jays in the offseason. Hopefully everything goes the way I hope it goes. I have some pretty high expectations for Creighton. Or in the offseason, I think we have a lot of pieces that we kind of need to need to replace. Losing the second best player to ever wear a Creighton jersey is probably number one concern right now. But we will have videos on those another day. I appreciate you guys for listening, and I will see you guys later.